All right, let's think about your life for a second. Imagine it's an architectural project, and you're the lead architect. You've designed everything, your career, your routines, how you interact with people. But what if one of your core beliefs, something you thought was a load-bearing wall holding everything up, is actually a deep, fundamental flaw in the entire blueprint?
This simple phrase, it's like a fascinating little error message that pops up in our human operating system. It's this line of code that so many of us run day in and day out, and we mistake it for this incredible sign of strength and independence. But is that what's really happening?
So that's the central question we're going to tear down today. Is this fortress of self-reliance that we've built for ourselves truly protecting us, or is it just isolating us in a way that's, well, incredibly expensive and inefficient? Let's take a look at the schematics.
To really get this, we have to go back to the original design phase, all the way back to our early life. Let's dig into the systemic psychology behind why we even build this defensive architecture to begin with.
So this isn't some character flaw, okay? It's a survival mechanism. It's what happens when a child reaches out for connection, for support, and no one's there. They learn pretty quickly to just stop reaching. They build a wall. But here's the thing they don't tell you. Maintaining that wall, constantly running on your own internal battery, it is energetically exhausting.
Now, check out the contrast on this slide, because this is where it gets really interesting. On the left, you've got the isolated island. You're running on the friction of I must do it all myself. But on the right, you see the upgrade, the super version. You're no longer an island. You're a powerful node in a network. You're running on the energy of flow. And your relationships aren't just transactions, they're synergistic alliances where 1 + 1 = 10. That's the blueprint upgrade we're aiming for.
Okay, so how do we actually get there? You can't renovate a faulty blueprint with the same old rusty tools. We need a new, specialized toolkit for this kind of redesign. Let's look at the 3 big ones. So the first tool is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. The easiest way to think about it is like the coding language for your own mind. It's how we find that buggy line of code, that I need no one script, and we rewrite it. And the new code, it doesn't get rid of your independence. No way. It integrates it with connection, creating a much more powerful operating system. And this concept from ML Kersey is just brilliant. Your interface is kind of like a cell membrane between your inner world and everything outside. If it's a rigid brick wall, sure, nothing gets in, but nothing gets out either. A healthy, fluid interface, on the other hand, lets you receive data, feedback, help, other people's emotions, without feeling like your whole structure is about to collapse.
And finally, the power source. According to Nick Van den Ijssel, the coherent nexus is what happens when all your internal systems, your heart, your brain, your nervous system, are all humming on the same frequency. When you get into that state of coherence, you can finally safely plug into the bigger network of human connection and actually draw energy from it instead of constantly fighting against it.
Okay, we've got the tools, now it's time to get our hands dirty. Let's walk through a really practical 3-step protocol to start applying this stuff and begin renovating your own personal connection system. This is what we call the Architect's Interface Reset. First, you use NLP to reframe that core belief. Connection isn't weakness, it's a force multiplier. Second, you start to visualize a new, more flexible interface. Not a wall, but maybe a shield. And third, you use simple, coherent breathing, 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, to sync up your internal state. This makes it feel safe to actually connect. It's a really powerful sequence.
All right, so now let's apply these advanced tools to a really common architectural challenge, trying to co-architect a connection with someone who is deeply self-reliant. And let's get specific and look at Gen Z.
Now, this is absolutely crucial to understand. For a lot of people in Gen Z, this isn't just a personality quirk. It's a logical system update for a world that to them feels pretty fragmented and unpredictable. Their wall isn't a rejection of you. It's an excess of self-protection.
And this just brilliantly illustrates the shift in approach. The old script on the left, well, that's a direct assault on their autonomy. It's only going to make that wall higher and thicker. But the co-architect script on the right, it does something totally different. It validates their existing reality, it paces their strength, and that is the first step to being invited inside their system.
This is the external processor method, and honestly, it's a game changer. First, you validate their system, you acknowledge their strength. Then you reframe your role. Don't offer help, that feels like an intrusion. Offer to be an external processor, someone they can just bounce ideas off of. Third, you invite them in using their language, giving them total control with terms like in-log code and a clear log out. And finally, and this is key, you release all pressure. You make the offer and then you just let it go.
This completely re-architects the dynamic from an intrusion into a resource that they control.
So, what's the end goal here? After all this renovation, what happens when you start running this new code? Well, the blueprint of the self is fundamentally transformed. You become what we can call the superversion architect. Let's take a look at the finished design.
I mean, look at this upgrade. You go from "I'll manage alone" to "I choose powerful collaboration." Your interface shifts from a defensive wall to a dynamic receptive field. Your whole inner world, your nexus, it moves from fragmented fear to coherent trust. You stop being excluded from the flow, and you actually become an essential part of the collective intelligence.
And that really is the ultimate goal, isn't it? The point isn't to tear down all your defenses. It's to become such a skilled architect of your own life that you can design bridges instead of walls. The kind of bridges that are strong enough to handle all the traffic of the world without ever compromising your own solid foundation. So the only question left is, what kind of bridge will you start designing today?